Hello, I'm Steve Flowers, and I'm going to provide here a very brief introduction to mindfulness, mindfulness-based stress reduction, and the online mindfulness-based stress reduction program. To begin with, let's say that mindfulness is both a path and a destination, a practice and a state of mind. As a mental state, mindfulness is embodied presence, a kind of wide open awareness in which we can see and be with things as they are. As a state, mindfulness has no preferences. It's a witnessing of what is without pushing away or grasping onto anything. It's really a way of life, a way of being in the world. It's a way of being with things as they are. We cultivate mindfulness with mindfulness practices such as sitting and walking meditation, or yoga and qigong. The first foundation of mindfulness is mindfulness of the body. It makes sense because when we are in touch with the body, we are present. As a practice, mindfulness is opening a space of awareness in which you can witness the activities of your mind and body, and into this space enters all your habits of mind and neurotic patterns. You can see the way that you're interpreting things, the stories you're creating. You can see the way you are creating suffering in your own life. The intention in mindfulness practice is paying attention to this moment, here and now, without judging or striving. In the sensation of seeing, you are present with what is and not attending to some narrative in your mind. This is good because it is the narrative that creates most of our stress. Jon Kabat-Zinn created the mindfulness-based stress reduction program in 1978. Shortly after graduating from MIT with a PhD in molecular biology, he began work at the University of Massachusetts Medical Center, and shortly thereafter introduced this 8-week program to help people that were suffering from stress and stress-related illnesses. He discovered through his personal experience that bringing mindfulness into our lives, noticing what we're doing with our minds, and how our minds influence our body and our behaviors, plays a powerful role in creating stress. He created a program that's 8 weeks long. It's consisting of 2 to 2.5 hour classes. There's an all-day class in the 6th week on a Saturday that we engage in all the practices in a day of silence. And in the classes, over this time, we come together and not only practice different mindfulness practices, but meet as a group and dialogue, talking about our experiences, interacting with the teacher, and doing our best to understand ourselves, really, and how our own minds and bodies are related. During the 8-week program, students are given audio and visual practices in which they can practice and make an agreement to practice every day for at least 35 minutes a day, some kind of mindfulness practice. They're also given a textbook and a workbook. They participate in exercises. And again, these are things we discuss in class. What we see is that there is a relationship between stress and our way of looking at things. Stress is uncontrollably reoccurring problems. It's another word for suffering. To respond well to stress, we have to understand our own role in the stress equation. The stress equation is something like 10% what's happening and 90% our way of looking at what's happening. This is a pretty important equation. We can't work with the 10% in some cases, it's a given, but we really can work with the 90%. We don't see the world the way it is. We see the world we are, and we can start noticing our way of interpreting things and take everything off of automatic. The primary source of all pleasure and suffering is the mind. And the mind creates stories about what's happening, and the story powerfully influences our experience of stress. Whether you're filled with awe or fear, kindness or resentment, depends a lot on how you look at things. For most of us, paying attention to the activities of our mind for even a little while can yield powerful information. For one thing, we assume our minds are under conscious control most of the time, but they're not. They're easily distracted and vastly less under our control than we can imagine. Because our minds are out of control, we create all the ultimately self-defeating and painful thoughts and behaviors that result in suffering. What we learn in practice is that it's possible to bring the mind under greater voluntary control and thereby reduce suffering. So we create most of our stress by our way of looking at things. If we can better understand how we look at things, we can stop creating unnecessary suffering in our lives. And we're the only ones that can do this for ourselves. The way Thich Nhat Hanh phrased this once is that, in a question, do you want to water the fruit trees or the thorns, the flowers or the thorns? Now, the mindfulness-based stress reduction program was created to provide MBSR for all those persons that can't otherwise make it to a brick and mortar program, because there are so few in this world, although there's 580 or so in the United States and more cropping up all over the world. Sometimes a program is just too far away to participate in. Thus, if you have high-speed internet, you can come into this program that is offered live in real time, in which you can see the teacher and one another, in an encrypted classroom in which we can speak with one another and write to one another on a whiteboard and in a chat feature, and engage and indulge in all the practices that we would in a regular 8-week MBSR program. This program is available to all English people around the world, and hopefully this very brief introduction will give you an idea of its availability and how you can find out more by visiting my website, mindfullivingprograms.com. You can learn a great deal more about this program, mindfulness in general, and mindfulness-based stress reduction. So thank you very much for participating in this very brief video. I hope to see you in class one day. Bye-bye.